Somewhere in this world, right now, there is metal that used to be a human being. A 1979 Cadillac Fleetwood, white exterior, pink interior, custom ordered, $15,000. It was crushed in a Brooklyn scrapyard in the spring of 1979, compacted, smelted, sold off by the pound. The car isn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part is what was still inside it when it went into the compactor. Louis and Joanna Cafora, a husband and wife, a mob associate, and the woman he loved enough to tell everything. They disappeared on March 8, 1979, and they have never been found. Not a bone, not a trace, not a single bill from the $6 million that started all of this. What happened to them is one of the most chilling stories to come out of the American mob era. Not because it was the bloodiest, not because it involved the most powerful men, but because of how preventable it was. Because Louis Cafora wasn't destroyed by an enemy. He was destroyed by his own ego, by his inability to stay invisible at the one moment in his life when invisibility was the only thing standing between him and a compactor. This is that story, and if you want more stories like this one, real history, real consequences, no fiction, subscribe right now. They are waiting on the other side of that button. December 11th, 1978, 3 in the morning, Kennedy Airport, New York. 7 masked men entered the Lufthansa cargo building. Shotguns, pistols, total silence. No fumbling, no hesitation. These men moved like they had been inside that building 100 times, because in a sense they had. They knew the security layout. They knew the shift changes. They knew exactly where the money was sitting, because someone on the inside had drawn them a map. That someone was Louis Werner, a Lufthansa cargo agent drowning in gambling debts. He owed $20,000 to a bookmaker named Martin Krugman. Krugman knew Henry Hill. Hill knew Jimmy Burke. And Burke, a man who saw opportunity the way other men see sunlight everywhere and always built a plan around Werner's desperation. 9 hostages were zip-tied in the lunchroom. The cargo manager was forced to open the vault. No alarms went off, no resistance. Inside, 72 boxes of untraceable cash, $5,875,000 in currency, $875,000 more in jewelry. All of it loaded into a black Ford Econoline van in under 90 minutes. By 4:30 in the morning, they were gone. The largest cash robbery in American history. Clean, surgical, perfect. The kind of job that makes men feel untouchable. And unfortunately for everyone involved, the kind of job that makes men stupid. The van had to disappear. That was non-negotiable. A vehicle carrying $6 million worth of fingerprints could not sit on a city street. Burke gave that job to Parnell Stacks Edwards, low level, an errand runner. The kind of man you assign the simple tasks to. The instruction was straightforward. Drive the van to a Gambino-connected junkyard in New Jersey. Crush it. Walk away. Instead, Stacks drove to his girlfriend's apartment in Brooklyn, did cocaine, and fell asleep. The van sat outside for 2 days. A cop noticed it, parked too close to a fire hydrant. Ran the plates. Stolen. The van was impounded. Stacks' fingerprints were all over the interior. Within 72 hours, the FBI knew exactly who they were looking for. Burke didn't explode. He didn't flip tables. He went cold, quiet, and he told every single member of his crew the same thing. Lay low. Don't spend the money. Don't buy anything. Don't draw attention. The FBI is watching every move you make. 7 days after that warning, Tommy DeSimone and Angelo Sepe walked into Stacks Edwards' apartment. Chicken still on the plate in front of him. They shot him 5 times in the head. Burke's first body after Lufthansa. His first message. Nobody was listening closely enough. Before we talk about what Louis did wrong, let's understand who Louis was. Born and raised in South Ozone Park, Queens, a neighborhood where everyone knew everyone, and half of them were connected. Louis wasn't a made man. He was an associate. But in the mob, useful buys a long leash, and Louis was very useful. He ran a marijuana and cocaine trafficking operation that brought in serious money. He owned parking lot businesses across downtown Brooklyn, legitimate fronts, clean books. The IRS never looked twice. Louis was exceptionally good at making dirty money disappear, which is exactly why Jimmy Burke trusted him after Lufthansa. Burke funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars in heist money through those parking lots. No paper trail, no footprints, clean cash on the other side. But the relationship went deeper than business. Years before Lufthansa, Burke and Louis had done federal time together on extortion charges. They were cellmates, and mob loyalties forged in a prison cell run deeper than almost anything else. You share a wall with a man, you know him, you trust him. Burke believed Louis Cafora would never betray him. He was wrong. Louis weighed 300 pounds. They called him roast beef, sometimes the whale. He was loud where Burke was quiet, indiscreet where Burke was invisible. He was the type of man who talked too much in bars, who enjoyed being seen, who confused loyalty with invincibility. That one fatal flaw, that personality, was going to get both him and his wife killed. December 24th, 1978, 2 weeks after Lufthansa. Robert's lounge was packed. The whole crew, their wives, their girlfriends, mink coats, diamond jewelry, the ronettes on the jukebox, drinks flowing, because they had just pulled off the impossible, and the FBI had nothing. No arrests, no real leads, just a crushed van and a dead errand boy. Henry Hill walked in wearing a red velvet jacket. Tommy DeSimone worked the room. Frankie Carbone's girlfriend had arrived in a brand new fur coat, expensive, flashy, exactly what Burke had told them not to do. And then Louis arrived, grinning, sweating, 300 pounds of excitement barely contained in a suit. Behind him, Joanna, 26 years old, blonde, beautiful, wearing a fur coat and a diamond necklace that didn't belong anywhere near a room full of federal targets. Louis grabbed Burke by the arm and pulled him outside. Parked under the streetlights, right in front of Robert's lounge, was a 1979 Cadillac Fleetwood. Factory fresh, white exterior, pink interior, custom ordered, $15,000. Louis stood next to it like a man who had just won the lottery. Burke looked at the car, looked at Louis, and said one word. "Congratulations." Flat, cold. Then he walked back inside. No raised voice, no warning, no threat. Louis laughed it off, slapped someone on the back, ordered another drink. He had no idea he had just signed both of their death warrants. The Cadillac was bad, but it wasn't the whole story. Burke wasn't a man who killed over one mistake. He was a man who kept score. And Louis Cafora had been running up a tab for months. FBI surveillance vans photographed the Cadillac within days. They ran the plates, traced it back to Louis. Suddenly, a trusted associate had become a federal name on a federal list. Then there was Joanna. Louis hadn't just bought her a fur coat and a necklace. He had told her everything. The heist, his role in it, how much they had stolen. He showed her cash moving through the parking lots. Joanna was 26 years old. She had no idea that every word Louis whispered to her was another nail in both of their coffins. In the mob, wives were civilians. You kept them out of it, always. Louis kept nothing out of it. Then came the skimming. Burke had handed Louis hundreds of thousands to launder. Clean money in, clean money out. Instead, Louis had been quietly keeping chunks of it. Jewelry, dinners, debts paid off, living large on money that belonged to Jimmy Burke. That wasn't carelessness, that was theft. And stealing from Burke was a category of mistake that had no recovery. Here's a question worth sitting with. Do you think Louis actually believed he could get away with all of this? Or did he know somewhere deep down exactly where it was heading? Drop your answer in the comments up. I genuinely want to read what people think. By late February, Louis knew he was in trouble. He stopped showing up at Robert's lounge, stopped answering Burke's calls, and then he made the last desperate move available to him. He contacted the FBI, offered to testify about Lufthansa in exchange for witness protection for him and Joanna. Someone talked, someone always talks. By early March, Jimmy Burke knew exactly what Louis Cafora had tried to do. Louis was already a dead man. He just hadn't been told yet. In the mob, there is a ritual to these things. Burke didn't send men to your door. He called you, invited you, told you to come to meet him, talk things through, sort it all out. And you went. Because refusing to show up was the same as confessing, and confessing got you killed faster than anything else. March 8, 1979. Joanna left their Brooklyn apartment thinking they were going to dinner. She was 26. She thought the life was exciting. She didn't speak the language of what was actually happening around her. Louis knew. He got into that white Cadillac, knowing exactly what the summons meant. But he went anyway, because that is how it worked. You go, you sit down. You hope that somehow, some way you find the words to talk yourself back from the edge. Almost nobody ever does. They never made it to dinner. Somewhere between that Brooklyn apartment and wherever Burke told them to go, it ended. Whether the Cadillac was forced off the road, whether Louis drove to the meeting spot himself, Joanna beside him, still thinking about where they would eat that night. Those details died with them. What is certain is this. Louis and Joanna Cafora were never seen again. Henry Hill later testified that both bodies were loaded back into the white Cadillac and driven to an auto salvage yard in the Starrett City neighborhood of Brooklyn, a place where stolen cars and inconvenient evidence went to disappear permanently. The Cadillac was fed into an industrial compactor, crushed into a cube of metal 3 feet on each side, then melted, smelted, sold as scrap. Louis Cafora, Joanna Cafora, and their $15,000 symbol of everything they did wrong erased from existence together. Louis and Joanna were legally declared dead by their families in 1985. No remains were ever recovered. Louis and Joanna were not isolated cases. They were 2 names on a list that Burke had been working through methodically since December. Parnell Stacks Edwards shot 5 times in the head, 7 days after the heist. Martin Krugman, the bookmaker who connected Werner to Hill, dismembered. Body never recovered. Robert McMahon and Joe Buddha Manri found together in a parked car in Brooklyn, both shot execution style in the back of the head. Paolo Licastri, Gambino family drug trafficker, found naked, burned, bullet-riddled on a trash heap in Brooklyn. Teresa Ferrara, her headless torso washed ashore on a New Jersey beach. 9 people dead or missing in 7 months. Every single one connected to Lufthansa. Every single one a loose thread that Burke pulled until it disappeared. And then there was Tommy DeSimone Burke's most loyal hitman, the man who killed Stacks Edwards. Tommy believed he was untouchable. In late December 1978, he was invited to what he thought was a formal Gambino induction ceremony the moment he would become a made man. He walked into that room believing he was about to become royalty. John Gotti shot him in the head. Retribution for murders Tommy had committed without permission. Burke didn't warn him, didn't intervene, because by then, Tommy knew too much. His death was clean, convenient, one less problem. By summer of 1979, Jimmy Burke had done something almost unthinkable. He had silenced an entire operation. Every man who could place Burke at Lufthansa was dead, missing, or too scared to breathe. Every man except one. Henry Hill had watched it all happen. Every disappearance, every funeral, every name that quietly stopped coming up in conversation. And he had been around long enough to understand what the pattern meant. Burke had started being too friendly, too attentive, showing up unexpectedly. The kind of warm behavior Hill had seen before, right before people stopped being seen at all. In April of 1980, Hill was arrested on unrelated drug charges. For most men in his position, that was a moment to calculate. For Hill, it was something else. It was a door, and he walked straight through it. He turned federal witness, went into witness protection, and then he told the FBI everything: names, dates, crime scenes, murder victims. The entire architecture of the Lucchese crime family laid out in devastating detail. It was the most significant mob betrayal in a generation. But even with everything Hill gave them, prosecutors couldn't pin Lufthansa directly on Burke. No bodies, no physical evidence, no recovered money. Burke had been too thorough, too patient, too surgical. Every man who could have testified was already gone. The only person ever convicted of a crime directly tied to the Lufthansa heist was Louis Werner, the cargo agent who started it all. He received 15 years. Burke walked away from the biggest robbery in American history without a single Lufthansa-related charge. He had won, and he knew it. Winning didn't save him. It just delayed things. Burke eventually went to prison not for Lufthansa, not for 9 bodies, not for any of it. He was convicted for the murder of Richard Eaton, a Florida businessman, and for running a point-shaving scheme at Boston College. The kind of charges that would have been a footnote next to everything else he had done. But they were enough. James Burke died in a prison hospital in April 1996. Lung cancer. He never admitted to Lufthansa, never confessed to a single murder connected to it. He took every name, every location, every detail straight to his grave, exactly as he had always planned. The $6 million was never recovered, not a single traceable bill. Some believe Burke buried it. Some say it was moved offshore, spent quietly over years in amounts small enough to never raise a flag. The truth is, nobody knows. It simply vanished like everything else Burke decided needed to disappear. Here is what makes the Cafora story linger long after you hear it. It isn't just a mob murder. It is a case study in how ego kills. Louis wasn't stupid. He was smart enough to launder millions without leaving a paper trail. Smart enough to run a trafficking operation for years without getting caught. But he wasn't smart enough to understand the one thing Burke understood completely, that survival in that world had nothing to do with how much you made. It had everything to do with how little you showed. Louis showed everything. The car, the wife, the money, the lifestyle. And then, when the walls closed in, he tried to flip the one move that made his death not just inevitable, but immediate. Joanna Cafora was 26 years old. She didn't know the rules. She never got the chance to learn them. Martin Scorsese, when he made Goodfellas, made the Cadillac fully pink. In reality, it was white with a pink interior. A small change, a deliberate one. A fully pink Cadillac is impossible to ignore. It demands your attention. It screams, "Look at me." And in one image, one shot of Burke's face going cold at that Christmas party, Scorsese told you everything you needed to know about how Louis died. Not the gun, not the compactor, the car. The white Cadillac is still out there somewhere, melted down, reformed, recycled into something else entirely, living a second life that Louis and Joanna Cafora never got. That is how Jimmy Burke solved problems, not with loose ends, with erasure. If this story stayed with you, and be honest, it should hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps this channel keep going. And tell me this in the comments. Do you think Louis Cafora knew exactly what he was doing when he drove to that meeting? Or did part of him genuinely believe he could talk his way out? I want to read your answers. The $6 million was never found. The bodies were never recovered. And Jimmy Burke was never the only one doing this. If you made it this far, you already know this channel is different. We don't sensationalize, we document, subscribe, and the next story is already waiting for you.